I will talk about the benefits again, just as a quick reminder. So the benefits of hybrid learning, that it's about providing students with the opportunity to come to class, have the hands-on experience, but also have the opportunity to study from home, especially if the lecture or the topic for the day is just readings and some questions. Do students need to come into class just to sit and have the professor lecture to them? I'll talk about that in a minute or two. The other idea I brought up is some of the costs that are required when people are commuting to campus, the distance, the time as well. And then active learning skills is another benefit. If you have access to a recording of a lecture or part lecture or partial, students can review the content from the comforts of their home, and they're not, for whatever reason, if they're rushing to get to class and they miss it, at least components of it are available online that they can review. So those are some of the benefits as mentioned in the first presentation. But I do want to talk about challenges. So we've just finished our winter term, and we've also surveyed our professors and students regarding hybrid delivery mode. And some of the challenges or difficulties that arose from the surveys include the following. There's too much choice. So without a set schedule, that's the second bullet, it's hard for students to determine whether or not the hybrid delivery mode is effective, right? Should they just choose an online course? What is the purpose of having in-person get-togethers? I'll talk about that in a minute as well. Again, bullet number 3 there says the confusing schedule. If the schedule of the hybrid course is not clearly determined, we use the word addendum at Seneca, but it's like a syllabus or a course outline. If it's not clearly identified, and what I mean by that is week by week, when students have to come, when students can stay at home, it can be very confusing, and it can create a lot of conflict, and I'm being honest, between professors and students. So that's why, as an administrator, I ask professors to make sure that the syllabus is clear and that the dates are determined. For example, if a student complains about a grade at the end of the course, and they say they didn't know that a test or some sort of project or presentation was in person, and it's not on the syllabus, the student is the winner in that case, because if the professor didn't provide a clear syllabus, then the student grievance, we call it grievance, is in the right. So they have the opportunity to redo an assignment or have their assignment checked again. The other challenges I mentioned, why should I come to class if it's just the professor going to lecture? That's why we encourage professors, if you're going to bring students to class, make sure that there's an activity, a task that they have to do. It could be group work. It shouldn't be just lecturing. Students should not be coming in to the campus just to hear you lecture. They should be coming in to do some more experiential activities. And other challenge, the final one is always a challenge. I don't think it matters what delivery mode, it's the ideas of evaluation. How do we grade certain items? I'll talk about that in a minute as well, in terms of what we could do in in-person environments in order to encourage and support students' learning, plus assign grades to certain tasks. Okay, I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about some of those ideas before we move on to the examples. You can add them to the Padlet. Just going to have a quick sip. All right. So the following examples I'm going to share with you follow a certain pattern that I've determined based on hours and numbers. As mentioned, hybrid delivery is, yes, a teaching modality, but it's also about numbers in the end. And if the numbers aren't followed, you will get into some difficulties, as mentioned, right? Students are confused. In essence, the most important part of the learning environment in my mind, is the relationship between professors and students. So anything that can make that relationship stronger, like a strong syllabus, addendum, course outline, is highly encouraged. So the following examples I'm going to share with you, it can vary from class to class, but the understanding that I'm putting forward to you today is that 50% of the total course hours are in person. So for example, if you have one course per term and it's set at about 120 hours, depending on your institution. For example, in the high schools here in Ontario, students have to fulfill 110 hours of a course, but I'm giving you the example of 120 hours. So if one course per term is about 120 hours, at least 60 hours of those have to be in person. Now, this next point here, the hybrid delivery mode must be made clear in the syllabus, as mentioned, and at the start of the term by the instructor. And what I mean by that is that students, I'm going to be honest, sometimes don't read the syllabus, addendum, or course outline. So the first class, I ask all the hybrid professors to spend at least 30 minutes to an hour reviewing the schedule of the hybrid class. Review the addendum with them, review the syllabus, review the course outline, and especially the dates of when the students have to come in person, right? And the final bullet point there is students need reminders. So although you are reviewing these ideas, the hybrid delivery mode at the start of the course, it's also very important that on a weekly basis, you make sure to tell students via emails, announcements, and in class that next week is going to be online. Or next week, we're doing another in-person session, right? So these are the understandings that I have put in place in terms of the next 3 examples that I'm going to share with you. So let's move to example 1. I mentioned this last time. I mentioned the idea of an example for a 3-hour class.